You are strapped into a titanium sphere, the size of a small car. The hatch is bolted shut from the outside. There is no handle on your side. Level 1, Selection. 900 people applied for this seat. 14 made it through the psychological screening. You are one of them. The screening took 6 months. Isolation chambers, panic simulations. A test where they cut your air supply for 90 seconds and watch your heart rate on a monitor the entire time. You passed. Your resting heart rate barely moved. The examiner wrote one word on your file: acceptable. You are not a scientist. You are not a naval officer. You are a systems technician who spent 4 years monitoring pressure valves on an offshore rig. That is exactly why they picked you. You know what it sounds like when something is about to fail, before the gauges do. The submersible weighs 12 tons. It is rated to withstand 16,000 pounds per square inch of pressure. That is the equivalent of 50 jumbo jets, stacked on a single point the size of your palm. The hull is a sphere, for a reason. A sphere distributes pressure evenly across its entire surface. Any other shape, at this depth, would collapse instantly and without warning. You climb through the hatch, feet first. The interior is barely wide enough to sit upright. Your knees touch the pilot's seat in front of you. There is a co-pilot to your left. 3 adults, packed into a space smaller than a walk-in closet for the next 8 hours. The hatch closes. A technician on deck spins 18 bolts by hand, one at a time. Each bolt takes roughly 4 seconds to seat. You count all 18. There is no bathroom on board. There is a bottle. Nobody mentions this during the recruitment interview. You find out during the mandatory 8-hour dry run in a training tank, and you decide not to drink water for 6 hours before every real dive after that. The training tank cannot replicate real pressure. It can only replicate the waiting. 8 hours, sealed inside a metal sphere, floating in a warehouse pool, while instructors watch your pulse on a laptop and take notes you are never shown. Level 2, the surface. The support ship releases the tow line. You are floating now, alone, on top of nearly 7 miles of open ocean. Below you is the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point on the planet. The pilot runs the final systems check aloud, item by item. Oxygen scrubbers, primary ballast, secondary ballast, communications array, 31 items, 31 green lights confirmed. There is a built-in delay of roughly 30 seconds on every message you send to the surface. Sound waves do not move fast enough through this much water to arrive instantly. The pilot flips a single switch. Ballast tanks flood with seawater. The sphere loses buoyancy, and the descent begins. You are falling now, not sinking. 160 feet per minute, straight down, with nothing to slow you but the water itself. For the first 300 feet, sunlight still filters through the viewport. Then it stops, not gradually, all at once, like someone closed a heavy door above you. The pilot narrates the depth every 60 seconds, a habit built from thousands of hours underwater. 200 feet. 250, 300. His voice stays flat the entire time, whether the number is small or catastrophic. You realize your own breathing has synced to his voice without you deciding to let it. Level 3, the twilight zone. At 600 feet, the pressure outside is already 18 times what your body evolved to survive. The hull makes a low sound as it compresses microscopically under the load. The pilot says this is normal. You do not entirely believe him, and you do not say so. Bioluminescent creatures drift past the viewport in the dark. A jellyfish pulses with a faint blue light, then dissolves back into the black water, like it was never there. At 3,000 feet, something makes soft contact with the outer hull. A single thud, then silence. The pilot glances at a monitor, says nothing, and continues the checklist. You decide it is better not to ask. Communication with the surface ship is now down to 1 exchange every 11 minutes. You send a routine status update. 30 seconds pass before the reply comes back through the static. All systems nominal. This is the false relief point. Nothing has failed yet. Every gauge reads within tolerance. You allow yourself, for a few minutes, to believe the hardest part of this dive is already behind you. At 4,000 feet, the last trace of ambient light disappears completely. From here to the bottom, the only light that will exist is whatever the sphere brings with it, or whatever the creatures outside choose to make themselves. The pilot dims the interior cabin lights to save power for the floodlights later. The instrument panel becomes the brightest thing inside the sphere, a small constellation of green and amber numbers, in total black. It is not. Level 4, the Midnight Zone. At 13,000 feet, the surrounding pressure has crushed a foam block the size of a basketball, down to the size of a golf ball. The pilot keeps one in the cabin as a demonstration piece. He hands it to you now, without a word, and lets you turn it over in your fingers. You understand, holding it, that the only thing separating your body from that same fate is 3.5 inches of titanium. At 16,000 feet, a warning light flashes amber on the instrument panel. One of the two external cameras has lost signal entirely. The pilot logs the failure in a notebook and continues the descent without slowing down. Camera 2 is still functioning. Camera 1 is not. You ask what happens if the hull develops a crack at this depth. The pilot answers in 4 words, without looking up from the panel. There is no warning. At 20,000 feet, the interior temperature drops to 38 degrees. Condensation beads on the curved walls above your head. You are sweating from stress and shivering from cold at the exact same moment, and your body cannot decide which signal to obey. At 22,000 feet, the co-pilot runs a manual override test on the emergency ascent weights. If both pilots become incapacitated, the weights are designed to release automatically and carry the sphere back to the surface on their own. The test passes. Nobody says out loud what the test is actually for. At 26,000 feet, you pass the wreck site of a research drone lost on a previous expedition 4 years earlier. It sits motionless on a ledge, half buried in silt, a permanent fixture of a landscape that does not erode the way surface landscapes do. There is no current down here, strong enough to move it. Level 5, full ocean depth. At 35,800 feet, the descent rate finally begins to slow. The pilot switches on the external floodlights for the first time. For several long seconds, the beams show nothing but drifting silt. Then the bottom appears, flat, pale, undisturbed for millions of years by anything larger than a sea cucumber. You are looking directly at the deepest floor on the planet, and you are now one of fewer than 25 human beings who ever have. The pressure against the outer hull at this exact moment is 16,000 pounds per square inch. Inside the sphere with you, it is 1. That single number, the difference between those two pressures, is the only thing standing between this moment and instant catastrophic failure. You spend 11 minutes on the ocean floor. The mission planned originally allowed for 90. A hydraulic pressure reading came back irregular 20 minutes into the bottom time, and the pilot makes the call to abort early rather than take the risk. 11 minutes to see a place that took 6 months of screening and 4 hours of descent to reach, and that most of the people who train for it will never see even once. The ascent takes 3.5 hours. Weighted plates drop away from the hull, one at a time. The sphere begins to rise, slowly at first, then faster, as the water above you grows steadily lighter. At 600 feet, sunlight returns through the viewport. It hits your eyes like a physical blow. After nearly 8 hours in absolute darkness, the hatch opens on the surface deck under a clear afternoon sky. 18 bolts, unscrewed by hand, one at a time. In the same order they were sealed. You climb out into daylight, salt air, and the ordinary sound of waves striking the hull. Your legs do not work correctly for the first few steps on deck. Nobody warns you this happens. It happens anyway. To every person who has ever made this trip, you spent 11 minutes at the deepest point on Earth. It cost 6 months of screening, 4 hours down, 3.5 hours back, and your entire prior sense of scale. The deepest place on the planet is not empty, and it is not hostile either. It is simply indifferent. It pressed down at 16,000 pounds per square inch in total silence, long before your species existed, and it will keep pressing down, exactly the same, long after every person who has ever seen it is gone. You went down looking for the bottom of the world. What you came back with was a much smaller sense of what the word bottom was ever supposed to mean. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end of the video. If you enjoy videos like this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our future videos.